The Phantom of Alderfen Asylum, Part 2. Chapter 6. Reinforcements arrive. The van bumped along the dirt path once more, headlights cutting through a morning fog that seemed less oppressive than the night before. Still, the air around Alderfen Woods carried an unease that pressed against the team like a second skin. "Why are we back already?" Kat groaned, gripping the edge of the seat. "We barely got out alive last night." "We're back because this is what we do," Julie said, her voice resolute. "And because we've got someone joining us who might make a difference." "You're talking about Maria, right?" Rowena said, sounding sceptical. "What makes her so special?" "You'll see," Julie replied cynically. When the van pulled into the clearing near the asylum, a silver hatchback was already waiting. A petite woman in her late 20s stepped out, her long black hair tied into a practical ponytail. She wore a leather jacket over a knit sweater, and her expression was both calm and sharply observant. She approached with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a tablet tucked under her arm. "Maria Torres," she announced herself, extending a hand to Julie. Her voice was steady, carrying a faint trace of a Spanish accent. "Thanks for bringing me in." "Glad to have you," Julie said, shaking her hand. "Everyone meet Maria. She's a tech expert and a psychic investigator. She's worked closely with Not a Cult before. You know those boys, Dan and Geordie?" "Oh, I know them," said Kat. "I know them well." "But really? Another psychic?" This earned a pointed glance from Alice. Maria's smile didn't waver. "I focus on interpreting energy fields and digital anomalies. Think of me as a bridge between the tech and the supernatural." She's been modest, Julie added. Maria's cracked cases that left even Dan and Geordie stumped. Other teams just scratched their heads. Maria inclined her head humbly. "Let's see what we can do here." Chapter 7. A New Approach. Back in the asylum's foyer, Maria set up her gear with efficiency that impressed even Mary, who'd brought enough equipment to rival a small laboratory. "What's all this?" Mickey asked, gesturing to Maria's setup. "A combination of custom EMF mapping software and a spectral resonance tracker," Maria said. "Think of it as heat vision for spirits. It'll give us real-time visuals of the energy flows all around this place." "Geeky," Rowena remarked, leaning over Maria's shoulder. "I like it." Joe, still pale from the previous night's encounter, wandered over. "You'll need to be careful. Evelyn's energy can be overwhelming." Maria nodded thoughtfully. "I'll be careful. Understanding her energy might be the key to neutralising her." "Neutralising? That sounds good," said Daz. "How do we start?" Maria turned to the group. "First, we need a detailed scan of the matron's wing. I'll need 2 people to assist me with setting up beacons to triangulate her movements." "I'll go," Rachel volunteered. "Me too," said Rob, adjusting his glasses. "Perfect," Maria said. "Let's move." Chapter 8. Traps and Tensions. As Maria, Rob and Rachel navigated the crumbling halls of the matron's wing, the tension in the air grew heavier. Maria placed small devices on the walls at intervals, each emitting a faint blue light. "These are the beacons?" Rachel asked. Maria nodded. "They'll track energy spikes and create a virtual map of Evelyn's movements." Rob paused by a rusted metal door. "This leads to her private office. Should we check it out?" "Not yet," Maria said firmly. We need the full setup first. The air turned icy and a low guttural growl resonated through the hallway. A growl as low as Dan's belly when he hadn't eaten for 5 minutes. Was that? Rachel trailed off, gripping her flashlight tightly. Maria's voice remained steady. Stay calm. Everyone's testing us. Let's finish the setup and regroup. The growl faded, but the oppressive atmosphere lingered as they returned to the foyer. Chapter 9. Facing Evelyn. With the beacons in place, Maria's tablet lit up with a detailed energy map. A pulsing red glow marked the epicentre of the disturbance, Evelyn's office. That's where we'll find her, Maria said, showing the team. Great, Rowena quipped. Let's walk into the heart of darkness, shall we? It's the only way, Julie said. Everyone ready? Born ready, said Daz. They moved as a unit towards the office. As they entered, the temperature dropped sharply. Evelyn's ghostly form materialised behind the desk, her blood-stained uniform stark against the dim light. Leave, Evelyn hissed. Her voice reverberated. Leave now. Maria stepped forward, tablet in hand. We're here to understand what happened, to help. Help, Evelyn's voice twisted into a snarl. You can't undo pain. You can't erase screams. The spirits surged forward, but Maria held her ground, activating a device that emitted a low hum. Evelyn froze, her form flickering. What did you do? Joe whispered. It's a stabiliser, Maria explained. It keeps her from lashing out with her psychic energy. Evelyn, talk to us. What do you need to find peace? Evelyn's face twisted, her form trembling. The records. Hidden. Beneath. Beneath? Pauline asked. The basement, Maria guessed. She's pointing us to something down there. The ghost faded, leaving the room eerily silent. Maria turned to the team. We're not done yet, she said. Let's find those records. Chapter 10. New bonds. Back at the van, the team regrouped, reviewing Maria's data and planning their next move. Despite the tension, there was a newfound respect for their newest member. Okay, I'll admit it, Rowena said. She might not be as cute as Dan, but she's pretty badass, she said, offering Maria a crooked smile. Thanks, Maria said, chuckling. You ain't so bad yourself. Julie clapped her hands. Let's rest up and hit the basement tonight. We've got work to do. The team nodded, their determination renewed. With Maria on their side, they felt a little more prepared for whatever Alderfen Asylum had in store for them. Chapter 11. Descent into the basement. Night fell and the team gathered at the basement entrance. The air was damp and carried the faint smell of decay, worse even than Dan's aftershave. Ash and Dee took the lead, setting up locked-off cameras and thermal sensors. I've added an extra motion trigger to the side corridor, Ash said, her voice calm but alert. If anything moves down here, we'll know. Good call, Maria said, studying her tablet. The energy's strongest directly beneath Evelyn's office. There might be a hidden chamber. Dee glanced at the rusting stairs leading down. I'll map out the east side. If there's a hidden chamber, I bet it's near the old boiler room. Dee, stay close to comms, Julie reminded her. If anything feels off, you call us immediately. With a nod, Dee vanished into the shadows with a determined look on her face, her flashlight cutting a narrow beam through the pitch darkness. Chapter 12. The Hidden Chamber. Maria's tablet began to pulse with activity as they reached a sealed door. The lock was ancient and corroded. Let me, Ash said, producing a multi-tool. With deft precision, she worked the lock until it gave way with a metallic groan. The room beyond was small and lined with shelves, each crammed with dusty files and crumbling journals. In the centre stood a steel table with dark patches. "Experiment logs," Rob muttered, flipping through the ledger. "This is where Evelyn documented everything." "Look at this," Rachel said, holding up a fading photograph. It showed Evelyn standing with a group of emaciated patients, her smile unnervingly wide. She saw them as subjects, not people. Maria examined the shelves, her hands trembling slightly. "These records, they're the key. We need to take them out of here." As the team began collecting the files, the air grew frigid. The lights on Ash's camera flickered, and the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. "Dee?" Julie called over the comms. "Status?" Dee's voice crackled through. "Something's moving on the east side. It's heading your way, fast." Chapter 13. Evelyn's Wrath. The temperature plummeted as Evelyn's ghostly form materialised in the doorway, her eyes burning with rage. "You won't take them," she screeched. The shelves trembled, and the air filled with the deafening sound of papers flying. "You won't take them. It's not what it looks like." "Maria, stabilise her now," Julie shouted. Maria fumbled for the device, but Evelyn lunged towards her, knocking it from her hand. Ash stepped forward, holding up a makeshift talisman Dee had crafted earlier. "Back off," she shouted, voice steady despite the chaos. Evelyn hissed but hesitated, her form flickering. "Dee, we need backup," Julie yelled into the comms. "I'm on my way," Dee's voice replied, urgent but steady. Dee arrived moments later carrying a pouch of salt and a lit sage bundle. She moved swiftly, creating a protective circle around the team. "Everyone listen." "Evelyn, listen to me," Maria said, her voice firm but empathetic. "We're not here to destroy you. We want to help you move on. These records, they'll tell your story. They'll show the world what happened here, for good or for ill." Evelyn paused, her expression shifting from rage to sorrow. The room grew still. "You promise," she whispered, her voice now fragile. "We promise." Chapter 14. Closure. With Evelyn's permission, the team carried the records out of the asylum. As they crossed the threshold, the oppressive energy that had clung to Alderfen seemed to lift. The air felt lighter, the silence less menacing. Back at the van, Dee handed Maria a cup of coffee. "You did good in there. Couldn't have done it without you all," Maria replied, smiling. Ash reviewed the footage from the cameras. "We've got enough evidence to keep us busy for weeks, and maybe give some closure to the families of these patients." "Do you get the feeling maybe Evelyn was framed?" Daz nodded. "All is not clear cut. Hopefully the records will show us the truth." Julie gathered the team. "This was a tough one. We handled it together. Evelyn's story isn't over. Research. Now, we check the records. But tonight, we'll give her hope." Rowan smirked. "And ourselves a reason to avoid basements for a while." The team laughed, their bonds stronger than ever. As the first rays of dawn broke over Alderfen, the EY Spirit Seekers drove away, ready for the next challenge. But not before Maria snapped a photo of the van's rearview mirror. In the misty reflection, Evelyn stood by the asylum gates, her face calm for the first time in decades. Prologue. Evelyn's redemption. The morning sun struggled to pierce the heavy mist over Alderfen Woods, but the atmosphere felt less oppressive. The EY Spirit Seekers stood outside the asylum, clutching the dusty records they'd uncovered the night before. "These journals, they change everything," Maria said, flipping through the yellow pages on the bonnet of the van. Look here, Dr. Philip Harding. He was the one doing the experiments, not Evelyn. She tried to stop him. Harding, Rachel said, incredulous. Same doctor who claimed she was torturing patients. Maria nodded grimly. He framed her. All those rumours about Evelyn's cruelty came straight from him. He manipulated the staff and burned the records that could have cleared her name. These journals are the only proof left. Julie looked out at the crumbling asylum, her expression hard. We need to tell the world. Evelyn deserves justice. Later that day, the press conference. Standing on the steps of Alderfen Town Hall, the teams faced a crowd of journalists and cameras. Julie stepped forward, holding one of the journals, with Daz by her side. For decades, Evelyn's name has been synonymous with terror, Julie began, her voice steady but impassioned. We've uncovered evidence that proves she was a victim of a far greater injustice. Maria held up a journal for the cameras. Dr. Philip Harding used Alderfen Asylum as a front for illegal and unethical experiments. Evelyn tried to intervene. The patients loved her. Harding silenced her and turned the staff against her. He destroyed her reputation to cover his tracks. Jo stepped forward, her voice soft but resolute. The spirits of Alderfen have suffered for years because the truth was buried. Today we set the record straight. The crowd erupted into murmurs. The reporters peppered the team with questions as the press conference ended. The story began to spread across social media and news outlets. Evelyn's name, once synonymous with cruelty, now became a symbol of injustice undone. Evelyn's farewell. That evening the team returned to Alderfen to perform a final cleansing ritual. The asylum seemed lighter, as if the walls themselves had been unburdened. Evelyn's ghost appeared one last time in her old office, her figure no longer shrouded in rage, but in peace. Thank you, Evelyn said, her voice now soft but steady, for giving me back my good name, for telling the world the truth. It's the least we could do, Marie replied, her tone gentle. You didn't deserve what happened. Evelyn smiled, her form already beginning to fade. Now I can rest. As she vanished, a golden light filled the room, casting away the shadows that had haunted Alderfen for decades. Back in the van, the team shared a quiet moment of reflection. Think she's finally at peace? Ash asked, packing up the last of the equipment. I think so, Dee said, smiling softly. And maybe the other spirits will find peace too, now that the truth is out. Alice smiled warmly at the team. Julie looked around at the team, her heart swelling with pride. We did something crucial, important here, and it's just the beginning. Rowena smirked. Does that mean we're famous now? Should I start signing autographs? Alice sighed. Don't push your luck, she said, laughing. As the van pulled away from Alderfen Woods, the mist lifted completely, revealing a clear blue sky. Evelyn's story was no longer a tale of fear, but of redemption, and the EY Spirit Seekers were ready for whatever came next. And there we have it.